Well, with the 2020 NBA season being finished and the off-season being shortened in order to make up for lost time due to the 5-month break in the middle of the year, there's a lot to talk about before the next season starts, and only so much time to do so. Over the last week or so, I've been putting out ranking videos, starting with the players at each position, then yesterday I put out one for the coaches, and today we're still on the theme of ranking, only this time we will turn to the benches of the NBA teams. For the topic of today's video, we'll be ranking the top 10 sixth men in the NBA today, and by this, I mean the top 10 bench players. These are players who may not be in the starting lineups for their teams, yet still impact the games in a big way when they sub in. Before we start though, it turns out about 79% of you watching are not even subscribed, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, because not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Before we get into the top 10 though, I want to discuss some honorable mentions that just missed the cut, and the players in this category are JJ Redick, Seth Curry, Derrick White, and Kyle Kuzma. Redick's been one of the premier sharpshooters in the NBA for years, but now he's getting up there in age, and while his shooting ability hasn't gone anywhere, his struggles in other key areas have started to catch up with him. Seth Curry is another big-time shooter of the basketball, who is actually, according to the numbers, the second most efficient three-point shooter in NBA history, and does very well spacing the floor for the Mavericks. With Derrick White, he had a bit of a strange season like the San Antonio Spurs did as a whole, where he brings very nice versatility and balance on both ends in the backcourt, but he doesn't get the usage that he might deserve. Then finally with Kyle Kuzma, he's had a very turbulent season on the title-winning Lakers, bringing sporadic bursts of scoring off the bench, but he's still good enough to get an honorable mention. And now to start off the top 10, working from the bottom and going up to the number 1 spot, we have George Hill of the Milwaukee Bucks. Hill may not have the most eye-popping numbers in the world, posting averages of just 9 points, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds per game off the bench, but his impact on the Bucks goes far beyond the box score, and he did an excellent job handling the ball and orchestrating the offense of the NBA's number 1 regular season team this year. One very notable aspect of his season is the fact that he actually led the entire NBA in three-point percentage, making 46% of his shots from deep, and his shooting was vital for a Bucks team that needed to space the floor for MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo to operate. Although the Bucks season ended in disappointment, there was still a ton of positive, and George Hill was one of those positives. Next up at number 9, we have Norman Powell of the Toronto Raptors. Powell has been a solid bench piece in the NBA for a while now, but this year he really took his game to another level when the opportunity to earn a bigger role presented itself. When Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green left in free agency, a lot of minutes on the wing were up for grabs, and Powell took them and ran with it, putting up career-high points with 16 per game and rebounds with 4 per game, while shooting a highly efficient 49% from the field and 40% from 3. He gave them an explosive scoring punch off the bench all season long and established himself as one of the best bench players in the NBA. Up next at number 8, we have Buddy Hield of the Sacramento Kings. After a major breakout season in 2019, things were looking bright for Buddy and his future in Sacramento, but after a change in coaching staff and a turbulent offseason regarding his contract in 2020, his season this year was pretty rocky. He began the year as a starting shooting guard, but eventually got benched. His perimeter shooting was still very good, but not quite elite like we had come to expect from him, and he just doesn't seem to get along with Coach Luke Walton. He did still put up 19 points per game and shoot 39% from 3, which on paper is very good, but watching him play, he seemed to start forcing things more, his efficiency suffered a little bit, his decision making was questionable, and he just didn't look like he wanted to be there. He might request a trade this offseason, and a change of scenery could definitely do him a lot of good. Up next at number 7, we have Derrick Rose of the Detroit Pistons. Rose had a very nice bounce-back season this year after a rocky few years trying to get back to playing at a high level, and even though the Pistons season was pretty underwhelming and uneventful, he was one of the few bright spots. He looked shifty again, his creativity out on the court returned to his game, and around the basket his finishes were as crafty as ever, and it led to him putting up solid production with 18 points and 6 assists per game while shooting 49% from the field. The Pistons are probably going to be rebuilding now, so hopefully he can get traded to a team with playoff hopes, because he definitely has the ability to bolster the bench of any roster. Next up at number 6, we have Jerami Grant of the Denver Nuggets. Grant is the ultimate utility guy in today's NBA, capable of playing several different roles and contributing in a bunch of different areas that don't necessarily get much attention. He's a superb athlete that defends hard and can switch onto multiple different positions. His handle has developed well enough so that he can now create a little bit off the dribble, and most importantly, his jumper has improved drastically since he got drafted, to the point where he's now a 39% shooter from 3. He played a massive role in filling in for the undermanned Nuggets this year in the postseason, and his play definitely helped them overcome 2 3-1 series deficits. Up next at number 5, we have Lou Williams of the Los Angeles Clippers. Lou had been the previous winner of the last 2 Sixth Man of the Year awards before this season, so he's been one of the best bench players in the league for a long time now, and for the most part throughout this year, he still maintained a high level of play, but his performance in the postseason just simply can't be ignored, and while Paul George and Kawhi Leonard get a lot of the slack for their disastrous exit from the second round, Lou definitely needs to take his fair share of the blame as well. In the playoffs, he had 4 games scoring below 10 points, which for a guy who we have become accustomed to scoring nearly 20 points regularly just isn't good enough. He's still in the top 5 of this list, but this season he definitely began to slip a little bit. Up next at number 4, we have Lou's teammate, Montrezl Harrell. I know the usual idea of a 6th man means that there's only one from each team, but I did specify at the beginning that I would pretty much just be factoring in all bench players, and the Clippers happen to have 2 very good ones. Harrell actually won this year's 6th Man of the Year award, and to be fair, he did play unbelievably well in the regular season and looked more explosive than ever around the basket, but like Lou, his postseason performance was pretty poor, and he just never seemed to look like himself when it mattered. His defense was a struggle, he didn't dominate the paint, and his impact was minimal, so despite being crowned the best for this year, I only have him at number 4. Up next at number 3, we have Dennis Schroeder of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Schroeder is coming off of what was easily his best season as a pro, and after making a career as someone with the ability to produce at a high level sporadically, he really managed to perform much more consistently this season. He put up 19 points and 4 assists per game, shooting 47% from the field and 39% from 3. His shot creation gave the Thunder a fantastic scoring punch off the bench, and he helped keep the Thunder afloat as they exceeded all expectations this year. He was clutch, he was consistent, and he was reliable, so he gets a top 3 nod on this list. Next up at number 2, we have Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics. Smart is the absolute perfect example of a player where the box score numbers and averages fail to tell the whole story, because Smart is 100% the driving force of the Celtics, and time again, he comes through for them in big moments. He's not necessarily a good shooter by any means, yet he somehow has the ability to heat up from 3 in a moment's notice to ignite the team's offense. Then defensively, he's an absolute beast that works as hard as anyone, is scrappy, and pesters whoever he's matched up with to make their life hell, and he got rewarded for this by being named first team all defense. He can fill in whenever the Celtics need him to, wherever the Celtics need him to, and whatever role he needs to play, he does so without question, and so for that, he gets the respect he deserves with this ranking. And finally, the number 1 6th man in the NBA right now is Goran Dragic of the Miami Heat. Now, Dragic is a weird one because literally all season long he came off the bench, but once the playoffs began, the Heat turned to him in the starting lineup because of his experience and leadership. But in doing so, he took the game to another level for himself that shot him straight to the top. The Heat made an improbable run to the finals this year, and Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo tend to get a lot of the attention for it, but Dragic's play simply cannot be ignored regarding how impactful he was. During the team's run to the finals, he averaged 21 points per game, and his shot creation and playmaking was pivotal down the stretch of games where he came through with some massive plays for them. He did go on to get injured in the finals though, and his presence was very much missed by the team, so even though they lost to the Lakers, if he was able to play, it likely would have been a much more competitive series. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank these players. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.